What's going on, guys? Back real quick. Gary Russell looked phenomenal versus Kiko Martinez. Fight went pretty much how exactly I thought it would. Kiko Martinez, very tough, very game, very seasoned, very experienced, but ultimately just not enough. He's a solid fighter. He's a good veteran, but Gary Russell, blistering hand speed as always, decent power, good boxing ability. Um, Kiko had no answers for Gary Russell's jab. Um, Kiko was definitely bringing on steady pressure, but he was mostly just getting beat to the punch the entire night. Gary Russell was landing his hooks, his uppercuts. Um, really boxed Kiko Martinez. Really did a phenomenal job of boxing him, staying on the outside. Um, and then Kiko Martinez's face started busting up, and then the fight had to be stopped in the fifth round due to cuts. And that's what happens when you don't have a defense. That's cool that you come forward and you're hard, you're tough, but you do need a little bit of skill when you step up in competition. You know, Heavyweight division is probably the only division where you can get away with not having a lot of skill, and if you have the right physical attributes, you can get away with doing certain things. But outside of heavyweight, most divisions in boxing, you have to have some skill at the elite level, and clearly Gary Russell showed his levels to this game. And Showtime. I didn't love their commentary about Gary Russell. Um, they acted like Gary Russell's just fighting one time a year just because he just likes fighting one time a year. Which is not true. Gary Russell's been calling out Leo Santa Cruz, and we'll get to more about that. He's been calling out Leo Santa Cruz for a minute, Abner Mares for a minute, Carl Frampton for a minute. Gary Russell, he's been trying to fight these guys. The only time he fights is when he fights mandatories, which isn't mandated for at least 9 months, or 6 to 9 months. So, that's the reason why Gary Russell's only fighting once a year, and he doesn't want to waste his hands fighting, journeymen, more or less. So, those are Gary's words, not mine. So I understand where Gary's coming from, and probably the most interesting part for his part of the fight was after the fight when he, I guess he had a shirt on his back that said, "We want Leo next. Al, what's up?" So I'm happy. I'm glad that he's been more vocal about calling out Leo Santa Cruz, Tank Davis. I'd rather see him versus Leo Santa Cruz first. Leo Santa Cruz has talked about fighting Tank. I think the winner should fight Tank. If they're so keen on Tank Davis fighting one of those two, have the winner fight each, have the win, face the winner, and then that way whoever wins is the most deserving of that fight. So um, that fight is long overdue. They fought in the amateurs. They're the top two guys in the featherweight division, the most experienced. I like Oscar Valdez a lot. He's the WBO featherweight champ. Um, but he's had some nagging injuries. He just got a new trainer with Canelo's trainer, the Reynosos. Um, Josh Warrington, I think he's the IBF champ. Looking like a solid fighter. Um, kind of a featherweight version of Ricky Hatton. Probably don't hit as hard, but solid fighter. Um, but I think the top two guys in the featherweight division are Leo Santa Cruz and Gary Russell, and that fight is way overdue. So um, I agree. Gary Russell make it happen. He did mention because Jim Gray asked Gary Russell if he can't get that fight, which I hope the fight does happen. There's no reason why it shouldn't happen next. Really shouldn't. Um, but he asked him, what would you do if you can't get the fight next? And Gary Russell said he'd be willing to move up and eventually fight Miguel Burchout, who's the WBC super featherweight champ. And that is a little bit interesting because Burchout's with DAZN and or he's not with DAZN. He's with ESPN and Top Rank. So I wonder if that's kind of telling if Gary Russell might leave PBC if he can't get a big fight with Leo Santa Cruz. Because truth be told, he is the only featherweight that hasn't had a big fight on the PBC side. Abner Mars has had big fights, with Quasar and Leo Santa Cruz 1 and 2. They tried to feed him to Tank Davis, but I got injured. Santa Cruz, tough. He had a fight with Abner Mar, 2 fights with Mares, 2 fights with Carl Frampton, um, and he's been calling out Tank. But the only top featherweight that really hasn't been taken care of is really Gary Russell. He's the only one who hasn't had a big fight. So, um, I mean, he's had solid fights. Escandón was cool. Jojo Diaz, that was a solid fight. Johnny Gonzalez was nice, but this unification is long overdue. So I think the fight has to happen next. I'm tired of these fighters just hopping weight classes recklessly. Take care of business in your own division. Is everyone going to be undisputed in every division? No, that's not realistic. But at least take care of the guys on your side of the street. You're both on PBC. You fight on the same networks. You're both experienced champions. You have the same advisor. You're both in your prime. There's no damn excuse not to happen. It's an easy unification. Whether it's just make it happen. Make it 50-50. You both got a belt. It's not like you have 2 belts and he has just a lineal belt or 1 belt or just a big name. No, you both got a belt. You both got a name. You're both in your prime. Make it happen. It shouldn't be that difficult. Okay? It should be a 50-50 split, 2 mil apiece, something like that. And I don't know. If you don't want to put in the East Coast because that favors Gary Russell too much, you don't want to put in California because it favors Santa Cruz, fine. Put it in Vegas. Make it a neutral fight. Put it in Mandalay Bay or Thomas and Mack Center, something like that. Stack the card and let's make it happen. Okay? This fight is so long overdue, man. It's ridiculous. It's a great fight too. Like, it's not even a bad fight. It's a good fight. Leo Santa Cruz shows he can box when he needs to box, but he also prefers to be more of a cloud breezing style and bring the action. So their styles are going to clash extremely well. So it's not only a necessary fight for the division, but it's a good fight for the fans as well. So I'm glad Gary Russell is making it known to the public that he wants that fight immediately. He wants it next. And it does sound maybe he could be foreshadowing that if he doesn't get that fight, he might look to see what top-ranking Bob Arum can do for him. So, if PBC wants to keep him, they might want to try to make that fight happen. So, we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think about Gary Russell's performance over Kiko Martinez. Drop comments, like, subscribe, share the video. You guys take it easy.